Thank you so much for joining us. This week, we have a special treat. We have Laura Fisher joining us. And Laura works with Choose Recovery Services. She does coaching, and she also is in her program to become a marriage and family therapist. And Laura, I love the way your brain works. And I am really excited for today's episode, maybe more excited than you. Just to give a tiny bit of background, something that I had always really loved and respected about Laura is she has a way of seeing the betrayed's experience and is able to speak to that really beautifully. And we did an episode a little while back, probably, I don't know, January maybe of this year. And it was called Don't Dance with Walter. And in the episode, we went through, and it was an acronym of ways that we can engage relationally that maybe feed the problem a little bit. They can get us caught, can get us trapped, can keep us spinning, can make us feel crazy. And so I love the acronym. I have a few clients where I was like, okay, you have to listen to this episode because I really want you to notice where you're getting caught in here. And Laura said to me, we were talking back and forth really kindly of like, I don't love the don't dance with Walter. And then what you said to me after, I was like, oh, Laura, this is gold. We have to do a podcast on this. So today we're going to talk about when don't dance with Walter isn't helpful, when it can be helpful, how to determine that for yourself, and then something we can either add to it or use instead. So, Laura, do you mind just maybe sharing a little bit about why you had that response and what came up for you?
Yeah, and all the hate mail can go to you for why people don't like me not liking welter. But here's the thing, you've lived in warm places before, and it's summertime here, and if I'm outside in the sun with my phone and I'm, like, on my phone and it gets overheated, my phone shuts off and I get that dreaded message, like, "Overheated, it will come back on when the batteries cool down." Okay. And I think, like, when you look at that from a perspective of window of tolerance, when you are in fight or flight, that's great. You do not dance with Walter. It's really appropriate for somebody who is in fight or flight. But when you've blown past the fight or flight and you are now in shutdown, those clients, I'm speaking to my own experience here, would wish that they could try to dance with Walter. They are sitting on the couch experiencing the abuse and saying, "Get up, move, do something, just walk away, get away from this." And they can't make themselves do it. So I remember way early on having this discussion about do not dance with Walter. And I remember thinking, I hate that because I wish I could do something to get myself to safety. And it seems like as bad as those things are, and as unhealthy as they are as from a recovery standpoint, it would at least be something more than just sitting there wishing that you could do something. So that's why I don't love Walter or not dancing
Well,
with.
yeah, I love that you slowed this down because you're right. Those who are dancing with Walter, there is this active engagement. There's this active, they're engaging in the pattern, and it's something that we want to catch ourselves in and maybe do something different. But when you're in that free state, you literally can't move. Your body feels frozen. It feels stuck. Inside your head, you could be screaming out of do something, say something, take some kind of action and feeling paralyzed to do something. So hearing another podcast episode or reading something or listening to a webinar that's saying, don't do this, don't do this. And you're like, I need to do something. I can't do anything. It can feel even more disempowering, more hopeless, more frustrating, or maybe even more like I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And really, like, that the whole acronym of "Do Not Dance with Walter" is those are all attempts to get yourself to safety or in a way that makes your pain worse. It doesn't actually help, right? And yet somebody who's in that freeze mode is at least that would do something.
Mhm.
Just like anger is a really powerful, motivating emotion. I don't love being angry, but man, anger sure gets me out of some sticky situations, right? And I look back later and think that wasn't the best way of handling that. But at the time, it was what got me out of that situation. And so, yeah, I think there's part of I want to just hold space for the people that are dancing with Walter. I get why they're doing it. And I also just feel so badly for those who are in that freeze state, who are maybe jealous of those who are dancing with Walter and just think, well, at least you're doing something. I'm just sitting here taking the abuse and I can't make myself do something.
I don't think we talk enough around people who are in this place.
Mm,
'Cause it is really common that we see that fight or flight where people get really escalated, and so I think we talk more to that, and then we almost talk about that freeze in kind of like, "And there's freeze, and it's an afterthought." But there are a lot of people who are in that freeze state, and it's not across the board that this is what I'm about to say is true, but I see it often enough that I do think there's a pattern here. That high level of abuse for long periods of time, when you have felt like there's nothing you can do without consequence or some kind of punishment, those clients I see more frequently in the freeze state.
mm. Yeah. And that freeze state is a lot more damaging to the body itself because the fight or flight moves that energy through your body, whereas the freeze just holds it. And Peter Levine talks about trauma is not what happens, it's what your body holds in the absence of an empathetic witness. And that happens, I believe, most often in that freeze state.
Oh, that is so good. I just had a client in my office today, and we were talking about anger specifically and how they were feeling a lot of the anger lately. And I'm going, yay, that means we're getting some movement. And
Mm,
for them, it's, "Oh, this isn't who I am. I don't like it. It's uncomfortable." And where I've seen them stuck for a while, stuck's not a fair word, but not feeling like they're getting the traction. The anger a lot of times means stuff are actually moving, and that can be a really good sign. Doesn't mean
mm,
we have to stay there. That scares you, but it means movement is happening. So
yeah.
yeah, I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, it's like the heart paddles. Like you don't want to walk around like jump starting your heart all the time, but if your heart's not beating, you're glad that you have those paddles, right? And that can sometimes be what anger does.
Mhm. Okay, I love your analogies. Already you've given a couple where my brain's like, "Ooh, I love that." Okay, so in a nutshell then, what I'm hearing is Don't Dance for Walter is helpful for those who are actually engaging in that process of over explaining, over teaching, over fixing. Like
Mhm.
those people, that's a tool that's helpful. But if you're not doing that, it's not a helpful tool, which is totally fine. And we're going to give a new acronym for what you can do if that doesn't resonate. And if you have been dancing with Walter and you're working to get out of it, keep doing that work. That's great. But still, I love what you can do. And Laura, you made a comment. I think it was about Jake Porter, about what he talked about the difference of the don't do versus do. Do you mind talking about that? Because I thought that was wonderful.
Yeah, so he was talking about addiction, and he said, "So sobriety is what you don't do, but recovery is what you do." And I think that also applies to betrayal trauma healing as well. There's a lot of don't do's, like, "This is gonna make your pain worse." But I think unless you have an action item of what to do, it's gonna be hard to not keep getting sucked back into the things that are less effective for you. So, yeah, we do need something to do, right? We need someone to dance with, not someone not to dance with.
Okay. And I love it just makes me laugh. So tell us who we're going to dance with instead of Walter, and then we'll go through that.
Okay, and then everybody can just make fun of us because you know how sometimes when you're in school and there's multiple people with the same name, So they go by like their first name and then the first initial of their last name. We're just going to be kind and just say that we're going to have a first name and a last initial because we needed it to work. So we're going to dance with SHAWN B. SHAWN B would be S is for safety, H is for honesty and transparency, A is for authentic reality, W is widening that window of tolerance, N would be noticing his feet, and then B is my favorite, boundaries.
Beautiful. Okay, so that first one, the S in Sean, now I've already forgot because my brain, the minute you said boundaries, my brain was like, bing. Okay, so S,
Safety.
D.
And we have to start with safety because if you do not feel safe, you cannot heal. That's just a fact of healing from trauma. So you have to get yourself to safety and you have to prioritize your safety in this whole experience.
What does that look like for someone who is brand new? A lot of times they hear of I'm not being hit, like I'm not out on the street, like I'm safe enough. When you say safety, what do you mean by safety?
This is something that I walk my clients through when we're talking actually when we're talking about boundaries. We start with safety, right? And unless I know what safety feels like, I'm not going to know how to recognize it or how to protect it. So I really want to sit with this. What do I feel like? What do I notice when I feel safe? Okay? For me, it like if I were to walk into a sterile room and somebody said make this place safe, it probably would involve, like, a nice comfy couch and maybe, like, safe people that I can talk to and resources and agency. There's a lot of, like, things that I would add to that room, but it's really like, sometimes the best way to figure out what safety is to notice what it's not. So, when I am in a trauma response, like when my chest is tight or my heart is beating really fast or I have, like, adrenaline in my fingers and I just wanna run, that's not safe. So when I feel that, now that's an indicator to me, you're not safe right now. Let's get yourself to a place where you can feel safe. And that sometimes is physical, but a lot more often, especially with betrayal trauma, a lot more often it's emotional safety and sometimes physical safety, but a lot more it's emotional safety.
I Here's where my brain is going. And I don't know if I want to open this door. So maybe we'll cut this out of the podcast. I don't know. But emotional safety for some people, they don't know what that means. So it's even that's what do you mean? But with some, they figure out what it means to be emotionally safe and they create the ideal. I know I'm talking really slow because I'm trying to like process this as I say it out loud, but they get to this ideal of perfection where I can't do anything until I'm 100% safe.
Mm.
So how do they know between like these two extremes of like I know nothing or I know everything about safety and he even looked at me wrong and therefore I'm not safe. Like how does somebody know like at what point am I safe or what point am I safe enough to consider myself having safety? Does
Mm.
that make sense?
Yes. And I feel like this is we could go down a rabbit hole here. I can just say, you know what? I would just say this because it really is individual to everybody. And what is safe for me might not be safe for you. But again, I want to bring Peter Levine in here because so much of trauma is somatic, like in the body, right? And he talks about if your heart rate is under 100 beats per minute, then you're in a more regulated state and you're able to metabolize the environment around you. If it's over 100 beats per minute, you're more likely to develop PTSD from that experience, right? So that would be my like baseline. A lot of people have watches, right? And they have the little app, the little heart thing on there. And you can set it to alert you if your heart rate goes over 100 beats per minute. And that's where I would start. I think I would start with, if my watch is buzzing and it's saying 100 beats per minute, like, you're over. Okay, now I'm just gonna say, whether or not I feel safe in this environment, I'm gonna get up and just change environments, re-regulate, maybe do some breathing, and make sure that I am, like, able to attune to my environment and how am I feeling? Can I re-engage in that conversation? And then go back in if I can, and if I can't, then I'm gonna communicate I'm not ready to go back into that conversation. But I think you could do a whole podcast episode on safety,
You
right?
you so could. But I love what you brought that back to. You brought that back to the individual because each of us are so different and so unique, and our levels of trauma are different, and what traumatizes us are different, and what impacts us and what floods us. And so truly learning to listen to your body, learning to read those signals, having technology to help in that process is beautiful, but really letting that be an individualized process. And this is something that I really do appreciate about the work I do with individual clients is that's something you really can hone into and they can discover for themselves what that looks like.
Mhm. And it becomes a superpower that
Mm.
is really empowering in your own healing, right? Because if you know what it feels like, then you know how to advocate for yourself. That's the first step. You have to first be able to attune and be willing to be in your body and not numbing it out.
And I'll just put a little plug for creating spaces in your life that you can go find that safety. Even if it's just in your bathroom or in your car or driving somewhere to a park or a room in your house, whatever you can do to create some of those safe places that if you need to retreat to that you can.
Mhm.
I've noticed the clients I have who have nowhere that they can feel, that they can go to be able to let their bodies regulate, let their bodies come down, have a lot harder time in this process. So that's something I do often is helping either my groups or my clients create a space that is more conducive to that.
Mm. Yeah. And you need that, right? You need that, and there's one of the first parts of EMDR protocol is a calm, safe space, and they have even meditations that you can find online, right? So if you don't know how to create that safe space, find a place where you can be alone, where you know you can't be interrupted, and start there. Like, just that visualizing, what would it feel like to feel safe? How can I regulate my breathing so that my heart rate can lower? Just that practice becomes a really nice default so that you already know to shift over to that when you aren't feeling safe.
And what you just explained there is finding that safety within your own body. And that's
Mhm.
absolutely possible.
Yeah. And
Okay.
in the beginning, it doesn't feel possible. I just want to hold space for the people who are maybe listening and know my body is the most dangerous part right now. Like, I don't want that's too painful in there. And I, having been there, I get that.
Mhm.
And it also is the safest place for you to be.
I love that because it can absolutely be a muscle, but muscles take time to build with practice, and you start small and you build your way up.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was our S safety H.
H is honesty and transparency. And I think that's another really important part of healing for yourself. And it's something that I think we kind of dance around. Like, I want honesty and transparency from my partner. I need it. I'm requesting it. And I don't always know if I'm getting it. But
Mhm.
that doesn't mean that you don't have the right to expect it in your primary relationship.
Oh, I won't make you say the whole thing, but you said, I can expect that in my primary relationship, that you have the right to expect that. Because a lot of people don't feel like they have permission or that it's okay for that to be an expectation. Or sometimes we even just give a negative lens around having expectations.
Mm.
But this, you can absolutely expect that. Doesn't guarantee that you're going to get it, but for you to have that standard for yourself in your relationship, absolutely okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And by expecting it, you're actually going to show up differently too.
Mm.
Because you notice that you're not getting honesty and transparency, you'll know to disengage, to get yourself to safety, to honor your own right to have that honesty and transparency. And that fully empowers your partner to decide if they want to show up honest and transparent without controlling him. I'm not forcing him. I'm not like chaining him down and saying, you will tell me the truth. But I also have the right to that in my relationship. So I can say, I'm not going to engage with you when I don't feel like you're being honest. That's fully in your ability to do. And think of the trust that builds in your own skin when you honor that for yourself.
Well, I think about that. And if you don't really believe that you can ask for that, that you are deserving of that, that you can expect that, then you wouldn't show up for yourself in those ways.
Mhm.
And so, really owning that for yourself first to be able to stand into that power. And yeah, that just clicked for me in a different way. Anything else we want to add to the honesty and transparency?
I think there's a part of us, I'm just going to speak from my own experience, where I felt like if I have that expectation, then I also have to be honest and transparent. And I wasn't ready to, like, I don't want him to see how much pain I'm in. I don't want to be honest about what I'm really feeling because that's not going to be safe for me. And so there was this like hesitancy, like maybe I can't expect it from him if I'm not ready to be that way in a relationship with him right now. And I just wanna offer that you living inside of a value system where honesty and transparency is important to you does not negate your responsibility to keep yourself safe.
Mm.
So I can be honest and transparent with my therapist, with my coach, with my group, with my close trusted friends that I have in my inner circle. That doesn't mean that I am responsible to be handing ammunition over to the person that's abusive to me, if that is how they are showing up. So, there's both sides of that.
No, that's really good because I do think about that. And it takes a level of emotional intelligence to know when and where and what to share with people. And in my experience, betrayed partners usually really want to have that connection and they really want to be able to remove those barriers. But their brain is such in a place of, am I safe? Am I safe? Everything is going through that lens of, am I safe? And sometimes we're just not ready yet because everything still feels so dangerous. And then other times it just simply is not safe. And that wouldn't be wise to
Mhm.
then go and put ourselves out there and be vulnerable when we're going to be attacked. And even that sometimes can be hard to navigate of, okay, am I just being too closed and I'm not engaging in a way that I should? Should I be starting to come and engage more and let my walls down? That's a big question I hear a lot with betrayed partners of when do I start letting my walls down? When do I re-engage? So sometimes that can feel confusing to know when or where, how. And I guess that goes back to that same question of that safety. When do I feel safe and how do I feel safe? And again, that's really a determination that I believe that we do have those answers within us. And it is really just slowing down, doing some processing. It can be helpful to have someone else to process with, but even still, journaling, it's getting to that inner, deeper knowing.
Yeah. And again, like, your body holds the wisdom of that, right? Like you said, we have that inside of us, and so often after betrayal, like, the bomb goes off in your face, the last person you trust is yourself. Because, "Why didn't I see it? Why couldn't I have prevented this?" We go down that whole rabbit hole of things, and really, you do know if you're willing to listen to the wisdom of the body.
Carol Jorgensen sheets. I don't remember which of her workbooks this is in, but she talks about using your heart, head, and gut. And as you start listening to each of those and slowing it down and seeing, what is my head saying? What is my gut saying? What is my heart saying? Helps you better get into some of that wisdom and those answers. So you can go look up, maybe it was called Empowerment After Betrayal. I don't know.
Unleashing your power, I think.
Thank you. I'm so glad you know that because everyone be like, what is she talking? Which is very empowering. It is empowerment after betrayal. Okay. So SHA.
A is authentic reality.
I love this
Okay.
one.
Well, this is where like you need the reality you're living to match the one that you know about. Because it's so disorienting, especially in the beginning where you're like, I don't even know who can I trust and who is this person that I'm in a relationship with and who am I and can I trust myself? And there's so much of that that just is so disorienting in the beginning. So getting to a place of I need my reality to match the one I know about, part of that might involve a disclosure process of getting the full truth out on the table. So now we can grieve this together and really heal the relationship. And part of it is just being willing to acknowledge that I have been victimized. That doesn't mean I have to stay a victim, but I have been victimized. And I think another piece of this puzzle is that a lot of times we do romanticize the past and we're like, but we were so happy and I didn't see anything wrong. And we really are so tied to that past imaginary reality, the one that we were not living, the reality we thought we were living at the time, but we get so attached to that that we can't find a way forward because we want to keep going back. So we need to have that authentic reality.
This one, I think the reason I love this one so much is because this is one that I've really struggled with. And it's my greatest strength and my greatest weakness relationally. Maybe not my greatest or weakest, but it's a big one for me. Is I have this skill of being able to see the good in people. And so my husband would do so many good things, and then he would do something really damaging, and I would go, "That's not okay." And then I would see it, but then so quickly I would go, "Okay, and he's doing this and this and this and this and this and this and this." And I almost then would just kind of bypass that damaging thing that was done. And I would focus on all of these good things and ignore the reality of the weight of the damage. And so I would take all of these good things, say there's 10 good things that each weigh a pound. Bear with me. They each weigh a pound. And then this damaging thing weighs 20 pounds. But I ignore all the weight and I go, okay, there's 10 versus 1. So he's really good. And I would ignore reality. And so part of my own healing journey was I started keeping a log of sorts of Alana, this is reality. This happened and it's not okay. This is the way that he is seeing the world. And that's not in your value system. And I really had to just, and there's something for me about writing it out and making it visual, that I just had to see reality to actually be able to move forward myself. Otherwise, I was just constantly in a bypassing state and never really moving forward.
Mm, yeah. And also another piece of that is you might be saying 10 to 1. Your body, though, is saying 20 pounds, 10 pounds, 20 pounds.
Mhm.
And when you ignore the weight of it, then your body starts to hold that.
Yeah.
And that's what's so disorienting is that you're focusing, you're trying to get your brain to be like, but the 10 good things, all the good things. And it was just the one bad thing, but the 10 good things. And your body is like weight of 20 pounds. And that's disorienting. And now you're like, I just feel so unsettled. I don't know what's wrong. I don't know why I can't fill in the blank. That's where we start to question our reality. And a lot of that is fed by the gaslighting that's sometimes accompanying that inauthentic reality that's so disorienting there. Yeah.
I did a podcast on gaslighting with Sarah Morales. I don't know, it came out like a month ago, but we talked about specifically on there a section from Dr. Minwala's work where he talked about how when gaslighting happens for a long time, we can start discounting our own reality and taking on the other person's reality.
Mhm.
And that was something that I really got caught into is he would always have the right words to say. And it was so much more comforting to take on that narrative and that reality than to sit with what was. And
Mm.
so this piece of stepping into reality for so many people is beneficial, but I will just say for me, it was essential in my healing work.
Yeah. Yeah. And even like you just said, this is where my brain's going. You said he had the right words to say.
Mm.
You counter that with a betrayed partner's brain where the Broca's area is compromised and she has no words to say. So then where her brain goes with that is he must be right because he's got all the words and I have 0 words. I can't put my finger on it. I can't say I can't really explain how I feel. It just feels off. And then that starts to feel, I must be crazy. He must be right. And then we just ignore
Mhm.
reality in exchange for his.
So this, I'll call it skill of practicing that authentic reality of stepping into that. I'll just put out there is hard and scary and painful at first. And as you do that, it truly is freeing and empowering and healing, but you don't start that way. You have to army crawl your way to get there.
In the mud. Yeah. It's messy, it's uncomfortable, it's hard. Yeah.
You may be holding your feet down when you're trying to do it. Yeah. Okay.
W is widening that window of tolerance. This makes me think of Viktor Frankl, where he said, in between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space lies our power to choose. And in that power to choose lies our growth and freedom. I'm sure I butchered that, but that space is our window of tolerance. So when I have a really wide window of tolerance, I can really process a lot of trauma, even and really stay regulated in conversations and I can make clear decisions, right? When that window of tolerance is narrow, stimulus and I'm reacting, stimulus and I'm reacting. I'm not responding, I'm reacting. So we really need to practice that widening that window of tolerance, usually through self care, but
Mm.
also through safe people and the things that we've already talked about, safety, honesty, transparency, authentic reality. Those are all things that help to widen that window.
And trauma has a way of shrinking that window of tolerance, sometimes almost instantly. And so if you are feeling like all of a sudden you're reacting way more intensely than you ever have before, you absolutely may well be. And it may be because our window of tolerance has dramatically changed because of the trauma.
Mhm.
Beautiful thing I love that you just highlighted is that window of tolerance can get bigger or smaller with the work that we do. We do have power in this area, but it's not an instant change. This is another area that it's a healing journey.
Yeah, and the way that we're widening it is we really have to bump up against it, and
Mm.
bump up against it and re-regulate, that widens that window, right? So we do need to be willing to confront the really hard things that threaten to dysregulate, but I'm gonna make sure I'm in my window of tolerance before I touch on those things, and then I'm gonna re-regulate. So that's gonna help me to widen that space.
Okay, thank you for bringing that up because I do have people that I've worked with who were very resistant to any level of discomfort, which when you've been through so much pain, I just want to put out there, I get it. But we wanna stay so in that middle window of tolerance, no matter how little it is. We're gonna stay right in the dead center So there's no way we can go outside of that window of tolerance. But then it also, like you said, if we don't bump against it and re-regulate, then we won't ever expand it. And so I'm trying to remember her name. I don't remember who said the quote, but in essence, she talks about like with triggers, then the idea of triggers is not that we'll never have them. And that healing isn't that we don't have triggers anymore. It's actually that when we have triggers, we know how to move through them. I know I totally did butcher that one. But this idea of we're not trying to bubble wrap ourselves and keep ourselves so protected. We are learning to live in our life and have these experiences and expand that window, meaning leaning into some level of discomfort and learning how to regulate through that.
Yeah.
Love that you added that. Okay. N.
Okay. And notice his feet. So I think initially, when everything starts to trickle out, we get a lot of promises from our partner, from the betraying partner. I'll never do it again. I never want to hurt you this way. I'll go to therapy, whatever the thing is that they're promising. And I fully believe that 95% of the people that say that truly mean it when they say it. In the beginning of their own recovery, though, that's very messy and not as much is it followed through on. So, where again, we get really disoriented is he said he would do XYZ. My eyeballs are saying he's doing ABC. And I really want to believe in the promises because that's where I'm going to feel safer is if he does those things. And what I'm noticing is ABC. So we get really confused and disoriented. And I don't know which way is up because he said this, but he's doing this. So the best way to heal is to notice his feet and adjust your own safety measures depending on where his feet are.
It's interesting because you think about, okay, if 95% are actually really believing it and meaning it when they say it, then at some level, as we're hearing it, our bodies will register and attune to their nervous system and feel that they're speaking truth.
Mhm.
And so then we buy into that of, thank you. Yes, they want this. I want this. We're moving forward. Thank heavens.
Right.
So you do have that experience and almost that confirmation that that is truly what they want, which then again, like you said, leads to that confusion, which this is what they really do want versus this is what they're actually producing. So there's a big difference between the intentions and the actual action and impact, and being able to really break those down and see them separately
Right.
help us step back into that reality.
Yeah. Yeah. And that again brings us back to that authentic reality. Need to be really like even like you said, journaling it or writing it down is going to really help anchor your brain to truth, which again, you have the right to.
Mhm. So watch their feet, not their mouth. Keep watching their feet. Sometimes my partners who have betrayed hate this concept because they think it means that they have to be perfect. And in my experience, that is not what betrayed partners are looking for. They're not looking for perfection. They're looking for movement
Mhm.
in the right direction. So when those feet are not just pointed in the right direction, but actually moving forward in the right direction, that's where I see that the desire of the betrayed partner really is what they want. And that's what starts creating that sense of safety.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was in a training one time where they talked about the marriages or the relationships that end because of sexual acting out behavior don't actually end because of the behaviors. It ends because of the lack of honesty and transparency about those behaviors. So it's less about expecting perfection and more about is there honesty? Is there transparency as they're working through their mess?
Oh, I love that. And I hope any person who has betrayed their partner or broken the trust of their partner heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we made it through Sean. Now B, Sean B.
SHAWN B. B is boundaries. And that is going to be what protects the SHAWN part of this whole thing is your boundaries, right? So, like when I was a little girl, I was outside playing in my backyard, and the neighbors behind us had just gotten a dog from the pound, and he was chained up in their backyard. And I was probably 4, maybe 5. And the dog saw me and thought that I looked fun to play with and got free from his chain and came after me and just attacked me. Okay. My mom saw it happening. She got me to safety, right? And she chased the dog off. And there was a lot of time healing and all the things before I ever went back outside again. But when I went back outside, my parents had fenced in our entire yard. Okay. It would have been a lot cheaper and a lot faster and a lot easier to just put a cage around that dog. And I want you to think about this from like a betrayal trauma perspective. Like it's so much easier to put a cage around a behavior, right? Don't take your phone in the bathroom, or don't take your computer outside of the main living area of the house, or whatever the thing is. That's a cage, but that doesn't protect you from other stray animals, right? Other acting out behaviors. It doesn't protect you from other threats. But when you fence in what's important to you, when you really focus on like my right to safety, my right to honesty and transparency, like I'm going to fence that in. And when you truly believe that you have the right to those things, you'll do anything to fence that in and protect that. So that's where boundaries come in, is fence in, protect that, those very important values to you, because that's what's going to help your body feel safe enough to heal.
And I love that because that's so empowering to you as an individual because you get to determine what keeps you safe and what you want to protect. So that dog, we actually don't get to control that dog. And I'm not saying partners or dogs. Please don't take what I'm saying. But so often the betrayed partner, and I so did this, I wanted to cage up as much as I possibly could because everything felt so unsafe that if I could just not only cage it up, but see it caged up, then I could go. "Mm." But I was putting that locus of control outside of myself in somebody else's power.
Mm.
And when I'm able to bring that to me and I internalize that locus of control, and then I get to determine what I need and what I'm okay with and not okay with, and it's value based, then all of a sudden I actually do feel like I can manage my life better. But that process takes longer and it's so much easier if I can just cage him up and look at him in a cage. But it actually isn't what I want long term in so many ways.
Yeah, well, and I would even offer from just from your own healing perspective, even if I give all the cages and put all the cages around, and even if he honors every single one of those cages, every request I make, he honors it. My brain will only say, he only did it because you asked him to, not
Mm,
because he's actually in recovery. And that's not because he's not in recovery. It's just because my brain is now on this hyper vigilant mode of I have to know where all the threats are
yeah,
because I have to know and preemptively put the cages out,
yeah.
right?
Mm,
When we, like you said, I don't want to put all of the power for my healing into the hands of the person that hurt me. I really want to empower myself to protect my values, protect my rights, protect my safety. And that's where it builds trust for you. It builds trust for your ability to make decisions in the future. And it builds confidence that you can heal outside of the gravitational pull of the relationship. I can heal
mm,
doesn't depend on whether we heal.
mhm. Well, and I think about this too, and this might not work with your analogy, but I think about these things that I have protected inside my fence. If he comes or if they come and they are willing to keep those things safe, like I would love to let them in
Absolutely.
as long as they are safe and can respect those things that I'm protecting, then by all means come inside the fence. But if you can't, then You don't get to come inside the fence because this is important to me. And I am going to honor those things that I need that are really important to me.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's the beauty of boundaries for the betraying partner is there a roadmap? That this is exactly how to heal a relationship with me because I'm telling you what is safe for me and what is not safe for me. I'm giving you a very clear line of how I'm fencing in the things that I need to keep safe. And now you have 100% control over whether or not you want inside the fence or not.
That is so beautifully put. So when we can reframe how we see it, it really is empowering for everybody.
Absolutely.
Okay. I love this. I think listeners will find a lot of value in this. So, Laura, thank you for sharing. Thank you, A, for just being authentic and transparent with me and saying, like, man, I love it because look what it opened up to.
Yeah.
And thank you for being a voice for those who were having a different experience. And not only those who are having a different experience, but taking it that step further of not just what not to do, but what can I do instead? I love that. The tools give me something that I can actually do and work on. I love. Any final thoughts as we wrap up?
Um, no, I think this has been such a good discussion, and I so appreciate you letting me come on and share that voice. So,
Laura's so sweet because I told her, I was like, we just talk. Like, I'm sorry, we don't do, and if you've listened to us very long, this, like Amy and I, that whole idea is you are just sitting here with us and we're just hanging out and having a conversation. So poor Laura coming on, I said, hey, do you want to come be my guest? And she's, okay, cool. What's the outline? And I was like, I don't know. But ironically, we had a totally different outline that we totally threw in the trash because of this conversation. And so it's been a treat. We have all highly benefited from this. I benefited from this. I love the way your brain works. I love the visuals and the analogies. Thank you for joining us. For all of our listeners, thank you so much for hanging out with us this week. And as always, we appreciate your time and we look forward to seeing you all next week.
Are you a woman struggling with unwanted sexual behavior? Whether it's reoccurring challenge or a one-time incident, Choose Renewal is here to support you and your journey to recovery and healing. Our group offers a nurturing environment and a community where you can find understanding, guidance, and strength to make healthy changes in your life and your relationships. At Choose Renewal, we focus on emotional intelligence, processing, and integrative attachment to help you understand your emotions and their role in these unwanted behaviors. By sharing experiences and coping strategies, we empower each other to cultivate healthier relationships with others and ourselves. Our group provides a non judgmental environment where you can explore your challenges and triumphs without fear or stigma of shame. Together, we work towards personal growth, self discovery, and lasting transformation. So, whether you're a woman who is just beginning recovery journey or you've been working on it for some time, Choose Renewal offers support, encouragement, and camaraderie. Join us to navigate healing and embrace the opportunity to renew yourself and reclaim your life. Our group meets weekly on Tuesdays, and you can register by visiting chooserecoveryservices.com or check the show notes for a link.